Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to the Universal Broadcasting Network's Hit Afternoon Show, bringing you the latest in music news, artist interviews, and more, with your hosts, Lauren Dair, Justin Tanucci, and Sean Lusk. This is the Music Project.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lauren Dair. Are you on now?
Hello, check. 1, 2, 2. Hey, there I am. And I'm Sean Lusk. Hello.
Sorry about that. I accidentally turned your mic down. That's so not nice of me. I couldn't bear to
all
hear
the
your
mics
voice.
were up except mine. You're like, no.
I didn't mean to. They're all switched out of order. I'm so sorry. Hey, guys. I'm Lauren Dair.
I'm Sean Lusk.
This is the Music Project. It is a lovely Sunday. It's not blistering hot today.
It's still pretty hot. I mean, I wish it was still winter.
Yeah, but it's not 116,
True.
It was a couple of weeks ago. So you know what? I'm pretty content with what's going on.
It's perfect California weather.
Yep. So last week you went to Sublime.
Yep.
You went to Dirty Heads.
Yep.
Next week I'm going to see Adele.
Oh, you're going to see Adele?
I'm going to cry like a little
no.
baby. I am so ready.
Yep.
Like, I'm so ready.
I'm about to go see Warped Tour, San Diego.
Look at that. Got a couple good lineups. We'll have to do a concert review show and talk about all the great shows that we've seen and all the awesome music and everything.
Most definitely. I'm seeing Diane Ward. If you know who that is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Diane Ward. If you haven't heard of Diane Ward, they're South African rave rap. Just take that into your mind and absorb that, and then look them up.
You know what's funny is I know them from your brother because your brother used to play them all the time.
Yeah.
And then I was back home in Alaska last week, and we were on a movie binge because that's all we do when I'm up there is just watch a ton of movies. And we watched Chappie, and they're in Chappie.
Oh yeah.
They're like the main actors in Chappie, and
Yep.
I'm like, oh, and my dad didn't know. My dad had seen the movie, but he didn't know who they were. So
He's
then
like,
I
"Who's
went
that?"
and showed them a bunch of their videos, and he's like, that made this movie like 100 times better now.
I'm really excited to see like what the crowds are gonna be like. I don't know who's gonna show up to that type of show.
Okay, yeah, no, it's gonna be crazy, and I'm scared for you. And give me an update.
I will.
Please don't die.
We'll do a concert review on this.
Okay.
Radio.
Wonderful. Well, we have an awesome band on the show today. I've heard of them for years now, and I had friends who were obsessed about them, and so I had to go check them out for myself. And I love their music, and I'm so glad that they were able to come on the show and hang out with us. I correct me again if I say this wrong. Savoir, Adore.
You got it. Well, Adore.
Adore. Okay.
So close.
Savoir, Adore. Better than I was saying it. Wonderful.
She's like Savior Adore.
I also can't spell for the life of me.
I probably would have said the same thing.
So in my head, that's how I came across.
It happens all the time, and it's much worse.
Okay, so that's not the worst that you've heard.
No.
Okay.
No, we've heard some pretty bad ones. It's been announced a couple times at big shows as Savior Adore or Savior Adore or unbelievable things.
Adore.
That's the funny thing, especially if you're doing a show where you're playing, if you're the headliner or someone, is whatever's going on, and they don't get your name right. I remember we were playing a show once at the Whiskey, and my old band's name was Gravity Hill, and they called us Gravity Falls, which I guess is a Disney Channel show. And everyone was dying of laughter, and I was so upset.
I remember Lauren was really mad about that.
But you just gotta roll with it. But yes, we are talking to Paul, who is calling in. Where are you calling in from today?
From New York, from Brooklyn.
All the way on the East Coast.
So far
all the
from
way on
us.
the East Coast, where it is also hot. But I heard it was really hot in LA like last week, right?
Oh yeah, last week it was almost too much. I mean,
Yeah.
it was too much, but I mean, it was pretty intense.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny because I come from Alaska originally, and so I was
Oh, wow.
home, and I was home visiting my dad, and it was it was probably like 75, 80 while I was there, which is hot for Alaska, but it was great. It was it was cold. I loved it, and people are talking about how they couldn't sleep at night because it was so hot and all of this stuff. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because it was 116 2 weeks ago, and that was pretty bad.
It's 75 here, so it must be chilling.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and start talking about music. That's why we have you here. So tell us a little bit about, how you got started in music. How was it? Was it something that you picked up through, your family, or was it something that you found on your own? And tell us how, this band came to be.
Totally. I mean, it was sort of an interesting combination of kind of the traditional things that happened where my father was actually a musician and a composer as well. So that was like a very deeply rooted family background. But then also at the same time, I had this sort of like, not like necessarily a rebellion against that, but, my father wanted me to be a classical pianist. And then when I started playing guitar and writing songs in high school, it was sort of the exact opposite of that. And it really wasn't until I went to NYU that I started performing and singing out at venues and stuff. So I think a lot of that was just ending up living in New York, where if you're a musician and, you want to perform, there aren't that many places in the world, I think, that are as welcoming and open and there's so many varieties of music being performed that I think as soon as you put yourself out here, you can, it's that easy that you can perform in front of people in a week from getting here. And so basically after that, I started collaborating with people, and I started the band Savoir with DJ Muro back in 2006 or 2007. And it was really, interestingly enough, it was sort of our, once again, a sort of rebellion against performing solo, because we had been doing open mic nights for years and years and years, and we wanted to produce stuff that was a little bit more electronic.
Got it.
And that's essentially how Savoir started was, we were like, what if we do something with no acoustic guitars, and whatever happens, happens, and we'll take it from there. And that we actually ended up recording our first EP in a weekend with just basically those rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's really cool.
And then it was off to the races.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And and the thing about, especially being in New York, I mean, there's other music places like Nashville and LA, but New York has so many different backgrounds and so many different styles that come out of there. If you look at, some of the major artists today, they all either, were born and raised in New York, or they got their label through New York, or, whatever. It's definitely a hub for creating something different and new. So you got to give that to them. But, yeah, that's so interesting. And so taking that, when did you realize that, playing music growing up, obviously, you loved it, but was there ever a point where you're like, hey, I want to do this for a career. I don't want a backup plan. I don't want to do any other secondary job.
Right.
I want to be a musician.
Well, that's, it's funny because I had a lot of sort of those like aha moments, but I think I always was kind of like holding myself back from just admitting that that's everything I wanted to do. Because I think part of the reason is my dad was, since he was a professional musician, he sort of always warned me against considering it as a job. Because he's like, he just knew how long it can take 20 years to actually have a career, and so I think there were many moments like that, but it was a slow evolution with the band. It was, obviously the first few times we played shows where anyone showed up, we were like, oh my God, we can do this. And then, then like fast forward a few years and you sell out your first show somewhere, and it really, it hits you, because you realize like, oh wow, there are actually a lot of people who are listening to this music to the point where we can go somewhere and people will show up.
Yeah.
So I think, it was moments like that, and there were a good handful of them over 5-6 years. And I think they still happen, like even honestly this last year, sort of working on our new record now, which I'm sure, we're going to talk about, is I had a lot of aha moments because I wasn't sure where the band was going to go next. And then, we played a show earlier in February and we sold it out here in New York and Brooklyn, and people were singing along to even the new songs. And I was like, oh okay.
Wow. Yeah. All right. This is real.
Things are going well.
Yeah. Wow.
It's it's nice to have those moments every once in a while.
And I think, you already have so much anxiety, for lack of better words, of, oh, well, will I make it? Will I actually make money doing it? Am I going to have to go, do the waiter thing on the side? There's so much. You're just like, I don't know which way I'm going to go. Cause I always use, the analogy, you're not becoming a doctor, when you go and you're starting to become a doctor, the steps it's going to take, that you have to get good grades in high school, and then you have to go do pre-med, and then you have to go do a residency. You have your steps that you do, before you get your doctorate. So, but with music, there's no clear-cut way whatsoever. So it's almost that, well, I can go this way, or I can go this way, or I can go 500 other ways, and none of them may work.
There really are no rules, and I think it's even more. It's weird because it's sort of a positive and a negative thing, because I think there's absolutely no path that you just follow and then you become a professional musician, and I think that's more true now than ever, because. Yeah, I don't know. Every musician that I know, even the ones that are fairly successful, do multiple things within music, and also have had completely different paths. It's like some musicians play in a band, and then that's the first band they play in, and it gets popular. But for the most part, it's like, it's really tricky.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think, but on the plus side, I think there's many, many different ways. It's not just 30 years ago, you have to be in a band that gets signed to a record label, and you have to sort of have the support there. Whereas now I have friends who literally just put their music up on TuneCore or Spotify the next day. Something clicks, or it's on SoundCloud, and the next, literally within months, they're getting, opportunities to play big shows purely just on the music itself, nothing else.
Yeah.
So it's kind of exciting in that way too.
Yeah, I was reading part of Halsey's Rolling Stone article yesterday, and that's what she said. She's like, I played around New York, and I was kind of couch surfing, and I went to this hotel party mostly because I thought I'd be able to sleep in a bed, and I met this producer guy, and I showed him a video of me singing on my phone, and he asked if I wanted to collaborate, and they kind of worked for a little bit, and she just randomly uploaded something to SoundCloud, and overnight it took off. People. Within a week she was getting, label offers, and she was like, I was a 19-year-old kid, that wasn't my expectation. So it's very crazy when something like that just clicks and happens.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable, and I think it happens. It happens in many more different ways now, and I think it happens through simple things like that, where someone can just upload a song from their bedroom, and then a week later they could have a record deal. It's that crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked a lot about this. We talked about this last week, as well. But it's so rare at the same time because the market is so oversaturated. Anyone can do it now. If you can learn to work GarageBand really well, you don't even need Pro Tools. You can make something decent and upload it, and people love it and they'll download it. But at the same time, you're competing with thousands of other people.
So many people.
So if you do get picked out of that crowd, it's really a cool thing, because not everyone gets that type of opportunity.
True. Totally true.
When did you start to write music? Were you always writing music, or was it something that just kind of came to you later?
It's funny. It happened when my mom got me a guitar in high school. Because for some reason, for me, sitting down at a piano, even till today, I have this connection with performing classical stuff, classical music. And so for some reason, the guitar, when it finally got into my hands, I was like, oh, this is a completely different experience. This is a release from the sort of technical, aspects of performing piano. So it was really around when I was 16 or 17, and I started. There's also a really nice social aspect to, hey, you have a guitar, you go over to your friend's place and you play guitar with them and you write a song. It just was this different sort of inspiration that came from playing that. So it really started when I was 16, but it didn't sort of rise until I was in college, because I just started collaborating with more people, which for me at least has always been a really important thing. I always start a lot of songs by myself, but I really like to write with other people, and that's sort of part of the Savoir. That's sort of a big part of the Savoir project as well.
Yeah, and I don't know how it is for New York, but I know as far as trying to find people to write in LA is honestly one of the scarcest things I've ever seen. Nobody here, unless you're, one of the big guys, not a lot of people here write. So, I'll go out to Nashville where everybody writes and you can find collaborations everywhere. But is New York kind of the same way? Is it pretty easy to find people who are willing to collaborate?
It's funny you say that, because I think to people in New York, LA seems easy to get more people to write with. because I really think that way. It's because I wrote a lot of this record actually coming out to LA, and through just friends of friends and through like our publishing company and stuff. I ended up doing writing sessions out there, whereas in New York, everyone is a little bit more focused on like their project or their band.
Got it.
So the collaborations here, that said, there's a lot of collaborating and a lot of writing going on here, but it's a little bit more, I would say it's a little bit more band oriented, whereas my experience, at least in Los Angeles, was that it was more song oriented. So like people will actually get together and write a song just to write a song.
Yeah.
But that's funny though, because I think I'm not surprised then, in your perspective being in LA, that maybe because Nashville is probably the ultimate of that. It's like people just, it's a songwriting city. That's like what the city's built on, you know?
You know, I go there, you know, once every couple of months or so, and I'll show up with no plans made, you know, maybe one meeting, you know, for the week I'm there. And I will be out writing or doing something from 8 a.m. to midnight. You know, it's just one of those towns where you get one session and then someone who walks in the building is like, hey, you write? Let's write tomorrow. You know, like people there are just so friendly and so open, which is why I find it so funny that, you know, like, you come to LA, you find all these writers, and like I'm sitting here living here, and it's so hard to find anyone. It's kind of like, you know, the grass is always greener where you're not.
And I think it's also the fact that if you're coming somewhere and you're there only for a week or two, there's this sort of weird like I don't know, subconscious thing that happens where things just sort of fall into place, you know. Whereas like sometimes I try to put together writing sessions here. And I'm like, does anyone want to write? And then I come to LA for like 10 days and I'm the same way you are in Nashville. Just, you know, I'm writing. I'm writing not 24 hours a day, but, you know, a good part of the day.
Like, I was discussing it with my mom because, like, well, maybe I should go out there for, you know, like 2 or 3 months and I can, you know, like live there for, you know, a couple months and kind of see what's going on. And I realized it's kind of the same thing. You know, there's an urgency. It's like, someone's coming from out of town. This is our only chance to, you know, like to get this opportunity to write with this person. And people are more excited about it. Whereas if you live there, they're like, oh, well, I'll just call him whenever or not. So that
totally. No, I totally think that happens.
So funny. Go for it. Say something.
I was just wanting to know what your writing process is like, and what you draw inspiration from when you are actually writing a song.
Well, it's interesting with Savoir because again, it's sort of the whole idea behind the project was an experiment, and so when the band sort of transitioned from an experiment to really like my main thing, it was sort of a challenge to take that initial spark, you know, that sort of initial challenge or inspiration idea, or experimentation idea, and make it like a more regular thing. So in a way, I kind of have to continuously change up the process in a way to almost trick myself into making it feel new all the time. So whether that's playing different instruments or collaborating with different people, I don't know, it's almost like a weird fun game I play with myself now. So like there are songs that I write almost entirely just on voice memos to you know, I think is an interesting challenge as a songwriter is to try to write a song with no instruments, just by singing melodies, which I know, again, a lot of singers especially do that anyway, but as a sort of instrumentalist first, I never did that. So there are a handful of songs on this new record where it's funny, like listening back to old voice memos, there's sort of the little nugget inspirational seed of a song that comes about later. So for me, it's funny. There's no one answer with that, but I think the most common thing would be I really enjoy starting musical ideas. I almost always start with music.
Yeah.
So usually what I'll do is either on a different instrument to sort of change it up or a voice memo, I'll write a musical idea or hum it or to give it a beat. And then I go to my computer eventually and then fully produce it. So the song will be almost fully done before there are any lyrics.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's sort of my general routine. I think it's because I'm, again, like a producer and a musician first before I'm necessarily like a lyricist. So, and that's often where the collaboration comes in. I really like to work with other people on, you know, I'll come with a concept and then we'll work together to sort of create a story and lyrics and final melodies and stuff like that.
Cool.
Awesome.
So we want to hear one of your songs.
So first up, we have queued up is Giants. So tell us a little bit about this song.
Definitely, yeah. Giants was actually the first song that I wrote with our new singer, Lauren Bettler. And it was really a turning point actually for the record because a lot of what I was writing before that was very much not straightforward like love songs, but it was very much about the idea of finding love again.
Mm-hmm.
And where Giants became really interesting is that it sort of turned that back inwards. Really, the song is about, you know, sort of letting go of your insecurities and letting your, like, the potential really of who you are shine through, you know, like who you truly are.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's take a listen to Giants by Savoir Adore.
You got it.
And we are back with Savoir Adore. I got it now. We are all good. So that was Giants. And what I love about your guys' music is that it is so youthful. Like, there's something about it that is, I don't know, it makes you feel very light and happy, and which, like, listening to that song, like, I just want to, kind of shimmy in my seat. So that's what I love about your guys' music.
Awesome.
So you guys are getting ready to release a new album on August 12th. that's called The Love That Remains. So tell us a little bit about what you wanted to do with this album and kind of how it differs from, some of the other music that you've released.
Definitely. It's there's a bunch of things that are really different with this album, because a lot of how we started was also very character-based and almost very fantasy-based. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the story, this record I wanted to sort of represent a shift where, not that it necessarily got more serious, but in that there's a little bit more of a human, emotional sort of storyline to it. Mm-hmm. Our first record was really like this sort of, it was almost like a fantasy world, like a fairy tale. And we built around this sort of short story and this world that we created. And the last record, Our Nature, which had like the song Dreamers on it, was very much about like a fantasy relationship between two people and sort of like this, a metaphor for like a dangerous love. Yeah. And then this record, I really wanted it to kind of be escaping in a way from that dream, sort of escaping from the fantasy and coming to grips with reality. And it kind of, in many ways, I really wanted it to mirror sort of changes in my own life, because it's kind of a fun way of writing, isn't it? To take things that are happening to you, but then to sort of amplify them in a way that's a little bit more supernatural. So this record really starts where the last record left off, which is, our last record ended, chronologically in sort of a way that it was about being alone and sort of trapped in a dream, and when I started writing this record, I wanted it to be about kind of escaping from that dream, waking up, coming to grips with reality, and then finding love again. Yeah. And that whole idea actually came from visiting Brazil 3 years ago. We played a festival there, really kind of at the end of our record cycle for our last record. And I met a girl who is now actually my wife there.
Oh wow!
And she taught me, fast forward 3 years, and we're now married. And she taught me this phrase "saudades," which is actually a Portuguese phrase, which there's no direct translation, but the closest thing to it is sort of the love that remains. And it's basically the idea of like a physical thing that exists between people when they're apart. And I just became obsessed with that idea. And there's actually been quite a few records and EPs and stuff that have been called saudades or like come from that idea. And I found it so inspirational. Mm-hmm. And so from that, really, the record became about those two ideas, coming to grips with reality and finding love again. And it was nice to write all the songs really with that in mind the whole time.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of a continuation, it's
yeah.
Even though it ended maybe on a not so, happy I'm alone. No, it's
right.
Even though, you had this brief break in between albums, you have this kind of continuation that's like, hey, it's continuing on, it's going to a much happier place, and it's accepting what is, which I think is a very cool thing to do. And I forgot to ask earlier, how did you guys come up with your name?
Oh, Savoir. It was it's literally just back then when we first started, which was like 2006. Mm-hmm. We didn't really know how to share like a file. We wanted to share a song that we were writing with a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. So we were like, there was no SoundCloud back then. So we were like, I guess we put it up on, the now infamous MySpace. And so, in order to put a song up on MySpace, you have to come up with a band name. So we literally were like, oh shit, I cursed already, but
you're good. You're fine.
You're totally fine.
So we were writing this song and we were singing it in French. Oh. And within 5 minutes, we were just like, well, what's important to us? And we decided, well, how about like to know love, and in French, that's savoir adore. So it just kind of, it just worked. It was really a very quick decision.
Would you say that meant in English?
Sorry?
What does savoir adore mean in English?
Oh, it means to know and to love. So it's actually like, there's no direct translation, but it could either mean to know love or to know how to love.
Okay.
Which kind of embodies the message that you've been trying to give off with all these songs at the same time. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Definitely. Yeah.
Would you say that it's hard to choose like songs to, because I know you have not only just like if you're putting out an EP that's 5 songs, I know you have way more than just 5 songs. So would you say that it's hard to choose like what songs go on an EP and what songs go in what order?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's sort of every time, you write a record, there's that point in which you just, there's a lot of behind the scenes laboring that I think a lot of people don't realize. I know songwriters realize, especially because when constructing an album, there's so many different things that you want to consider. There's the storyline, there's musical flow, there's a beginning, there's a middle and end. There's a big picture too of how you want people to digest your music. And it's interesting because, there's also so much deliberation over the album as an art form anyway, being that so many bands, there are many bands that don't even release albums anymore. It's just singles. So, but for me, it's sort of once The Love That Remains became an idea, I kind of knew pretty quickly that I wanted it to be an album. And I knew pretty quickly that I knew what I wanted. I knew Lover's Wake would be the first song.
Yeah.
Lover's Wake was actually the first song that I finished for the record. And really from there, it's almost like, I don't know if it always happens this way or if other people do it too, but I often will, once I have the first song from a record, I often write where I want it to end. So I then wrote the last song on the record.
Okay.
And then from there, I sort of wrote things that I knew that I wanted to happen in between those 2 points.
Okay.
Especially when you're going in that story form, trying to piece it together. Because if you're writing, a lot of times when people write an album, we've had people who've I've written 70 songs and you pick, 8, and so when you're doing something like that's very story oriented, you have to make sure that it all fits together.
Yeah, it's really true. And I probably wrote 30 or 40 musical ideas, but I really only finished 14 or 15 songs. Because I was writing very specifically for, I knew that, Giants, for example, it's that was a very specific thing. It's we kind of just, it fit in this place on the record where this, this character, who it may be, this individual, they sort of find love within themselves. And I was beautiful. That's the perfect sort of turning point in the record. And then from there, I knew that I wanted a song right before that was sort of more about the darkness. So we wrote this song called Savages that is very much about sort of the darkness within yourself when you're left alone to your thoughts, So it's funny. It's for me, it's almost, and this was on the last record as well. There were sort of these marker milestones within a story that I wrote with the idea in mind. So even at my songwriting sessions, I came in and I was like, this is what this song is about. I just don't have any lyrics yet. Let's do it. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and take a listen. So you said Lover's Wake is the first song on the album, correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I have that queued up right here. So let's go ahead and take a listen to Lover's Wake.
We were brightly shining, like a child's dream. And you were everything to me.
That was Lover's Wake by Savoir Adore.
Wow. That's all I could say.
Wow. So, Sean, you had a question about the instrumentation in there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering that was like you obviously did that on a keyboard, but like what made you want to make that little, I don't know how to explain it, like
that little.
I was just wondering like what, like, I don't know, brought you to like put that in there, because that was really interesting.
As soon as that hit, he like perked up and he was like,
I was
ooh.
like, whoa, what is that?
Well, I'm always been a big fan of like the sort of early '80s music, like Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins.
Yeah.
And there was a sort of era, especially where there was a lot of arpeggiators being used.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So I think for me, I've always really liked having arpeggiators be the sort of like pedal tone or sort of tension builder within songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that song is very much about there's like a buildup of tension.
Yeah.
You know, emotional and actual like musical tension. So for me, I really like the idea of having that rhythmic element mirror that as well. And I think that was my I have a chord polystick, which is sort of like the root of that main synth sound. And then I put a prophet arp over that, which is the like.
Yeah.
I just like using synths as almost as drums too, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a cool contrast.
To kind of cushion it, you know, kind of make it sound a little bit fuller and make it more than what it actually is.
It definitely caught my ear. I was like, whoa, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, especially because it kind of starts out slow and then it picks up, you know, midway through. And so he was like, oh, okay, I got it. But no, I thought that was very funny. So
cool.
Let's talk a little bit about your live shows. Is there a particular show in your mind that like really stands out to you? You mentioned that, you know, you guys played in Brazil. You guys have kind of played around, done the festival circuit, all of that fun stuff. Is there anything, you know, that particularly stands out to you?
In terms of our own show, or
yeah, as far as shows that you guys have played.
Yeah, it's, you know, the shows in Brazil were really incredible for a lot of reasons. They were sort of the biggest shows we had ever done because they were part of a big festival.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a dream lineup too. We didn't even expect it until the month before, but it was a big festival, but the three headliners essentially were the international acts, and it was us. It was Friendly Fires, who are one of my all-time favorite bands, and Charlie XCX, who honestly at that time wasn't quite like the pop star yet that she is now. It all sort of happened a month afterwards.
Wow.
So it was not only, you know, an amazing experience because of how many people were there, but also just the bands that were playing were so exciting, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And then on top of it, being a foreign country, you know, it's every time we play in New York, it's an amazing feeling seeing people sing along and stuff. But when you travel across the world and you see, you know, in this instant, there were thousands of people singing along to Dreamers. And it's just, you know, there's literally no way for that not to emotionally, you know, blow you away.
Oh, for sure.
So I think for me, that was, the first, the festival show we played in Brazil, which was in January, I think 2 years ago, 2014. That was hands down the best show we've ever played.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to, you know, because you guys have also played, you know, in the States as well. What do you like better? Do you like when you're playing a headline show and you're playing, you know, in, you know, a more intimate venue, or are you guys more about the festival circuit where you're playing, you know, with a bunch of different bands and you're kind of expanding, you know, your outreach a little bit?
You know, it definitely goes back and forth because there's something about playing your own headlining show where you can also dig in a little bit more and play longer sets and have a little bit more of a dynamic story, you know? Yeah. But then also, you know, when you play a festival or something, you're playing to your fans, but you're also playing to a lot of new people, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that I'm still, you know, every time is really, really exciting because you look out and it's almost like this fun challenge of getting people to listen, you know?
Because they're either listening to you or they're looking at the food trucks, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. How do you get them away from the food truck? And it's like that with opening slots a lot. Like we did a whole tour with X Ambassadors last spring, and you know it was really, really cool because it was sort of a new challenge again to really perform as well as you can, to not only play to your fans but then also to people who maybe never heard your music at all.
Yeah.
So it certainly goes both ways. I think the festival thing though is especially fun because it's often also, you know, you're playing outside, which there's just something very I don't know, there's just something very special about it that I think, you can, I maybe if you play, 100 festivals, the novelty wears off, but, we've probably played like 20. So it's still crazy exciting every time we do it. And it really doesn't even matter how, there's just something about that experience that feels so, it just feels like you're on, you're doing something right in a way, it's very affirming. And especially, I think, the international shows, just because it makes it that much more special, because you're like, this may be the only time you're ever there in your life,
Yeah, exactly.
And that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I haven't been to a lot of festivals myself, mostly because I stand at 4'11", and I would die in most of those situations. But
right, that's not the best concert experience.
No, but and I love music, and I've always there's several festivals I've wanted to go to, like Firefly and Lollapalooza and things like that. And the one that I did go to and I was doing press for was a very small festival. It was called Cultivate Festival, and it was out in Arizona, and 21 Pilots and Bleachers and a couple other bands were playing. And I mostly went there because I'm a huge 21 Pilots fan, and I went to go see some of those groups. But even when I was going, I was like, what, I'm gonna check out the rest of the lineup, just because if I'm there, I might as well go hang out and see. And I found some wonderful bands that I had not been familiar with, and when we ended up interviewing them, it was so cool because I went to go see the big headliner, but I found so many gems along the way that I was like, oh, you're super cool, you're super, and so that's kind of the fun thing about going to a festival is you might go to see, I think Lollapalooza is happening right now, you might go to see Radiohead, but then you end up seeing all these kind of smaller bands that are warming everyone up, and you find some of your new favorites.
It's so true, and I think it's true from a performing standpoint and from a fan standpoint where, that's kind of when you sort of bridge the gap too, where we played some festivals where, we're done with our set, and then the next thing we're doing is running somewhere because we're excited to see this band we've never seen, and then you discover new bands too, and I think that's almost it's the coolest part I think of being at a festival is that, you get to play in front of a lot of new fans because of a band like Radiohead is playing later on at night, but then also like you have that ability to then go watch that. I'll never forget. I was actually performing with another artist back in a singer named Ron Pope, and I was playing in his band about 2 years ago.
He was on our show a couple weeks ago.
Oh, right, really?
Yeah,
Ron
totally. Like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, he was on our show. Great guy.
He's one of my closest friends from NYU, and believe it or not, half of our band played with him on his last tour because we've all been friends for years.
That's crazy.
Obviously, our music is very different, but we all have. There's also a part of us that love, like I love country rock, like alt country, like Ryan Adams and stuff like that. So I've always been very much into Ron's music. But yeah, the cool thing with that was we played a bunch of festivals, and we played Music Midtown in Atlanta, and we got to go like side stage and watch like John Mayer and like Jack White do their thing, and it was like it's crazy, that festival experience. We were just like. You should as soon as you're done with your set, you immediately become a fan, and it's strangely enough, it's almost even more inspiring than performing because it reminds you that as a musician, as a songwriter, as a producer, you're never stopped. You're a fan of music,
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's where the festival thing, that feeling really stands out. So every time I've ever played a festival, it's just like I always go to sleep that night just like so inspired,
just happy.
And I hope that never leaves. I don't think I think that feeling, it's stuck with me for a long time now.
Yeah, because I think even when you're the biggest superstar in the world, there's still people that you look up to and that you are inspired by, And I think that's one of the great things about music, and especially when you do it not for the money or the fame, you're doing it because you just purely love music. That's something that you can't get anywhere else. I think the closest thing that comes to it is playing soccer and meeting your superstar, hero, but that's about it, So yeah, that's very cool. And if you like country rock, check out The Weeks. They were on a little while ago.
Weeks.
Yeah, and they're great band based out of Jackson, Mississippi. So
very cool.
Yeah,
I'll check them out.
Do you feel more in your element when you're performing on stage, or do you feel more in your element, writing and like behind the scenes type of stuff, like in studio?
I think it's funny because I talk about this often, and I think I kind of experienced this feeling a lot in the last 2 years. I feel most in my element when I'm not doing one or the other too much in a row, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because like even working on this record was really challenging because we didn't play the first year of working on this record. We didn't play a single show, and it really got to a point where I was like, I felt uninspired because we hadn't performed at all. So it was sort of this, it's weird balance where I think I'm at the sweet spot is when I'm consistently going back and forth, you know? And it's interesting because I had a hard time finishing this record, to be completely honest. And it wasn't until we started playing our first shows earlier this year that then I would play a show and I'd get home and literally in an hour I would finish a song, because there was something about that balance of, you know, I mean, that's I think what's very, you know, specific to everyone's involvement. Like some people just want to be writing and producing, and then some people really just want to perform. But for me, I need to be able to, like, 1 week write, 1 week perform, 1 week write, 1 week perform, and
right while you're on your bus or in your
exactly.
van, you know, keep it going while you're on the road.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's why often you find people who end up recording while they're traveling or writing when they're traveling, because there's just something inspiring about being on the move and about new locations, you know. And then so I kind of realized after making this record, especially since the first one I made really more so on my own, that in the future I don't want to just stop, you know. Because I think that was the hardest thing about writing, is that I kind of lost sight of, okay, what does it mean to then perform these songs, you know? So I think, that balance is huge for me.
It's kind of weird because for me, when I don't like perform for like a long period of time, I kind of get like withdrawals from performing. Like I'm like, oh my God, I need to get out right now and perform somewhere, anywhere.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it was the biggest, you know, it was a big part of why we ended up going out with Ron too, because this was probably, you know, a year and a half of writing the record, and I remember then going out with Ron. I was like, Ron, I just need to play, you know. And then we did a whole tour in Europe and then a whole tour in the States. And I came home, and that was probably when I was most productive.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, coming from a tour where I wasn't even playing Savoir, I was playing Ron's music, but it still reminded me of all of this energy that you get from performing music on stage, and the energy that's given back to you. And so when I got home, I was just like, oh, I'm a machine now. You know?
For sure.
It was really cool.
Well, it's congratulations again on, you know, all of your success that you've had, and, you know, the new album that's coming out.
Thank you.
Very excited to hear what's coming up. We are just kind of wrapping up the show right now, but if there's any shows you have coming up, anything you particularly want to share, social media, things like that, now is your chance to get it out there.
Cool. Well, obviously the biggest thing is, the record is out next week, almost August 12th, and we're doing a short tour to sort of like celebrate, and we'll be in LA on August 18th at the Bootleg Theater.
Okay, perfect.
And if, you know, for any other tour dates, just go to savoirdor.com or find us on Facebook, and, you know, there. But hopefully we'll get to now we'll get back into touring and playing all this new music, and it'll be exciting.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have to find some tickets to that show for sure.
Awesome.
Thank you, Paul, so much for hanging out with us. This has been a lot of fun. I'm Lauren Dair.
I'm Sean Lusk.
And this has been The Music Project. We're going to leave you with Paradise Gold by Savoir Adore. See you guys next week.
Ooh.
I've been dying. Is love enough, or am I still denying? Our past is fading to the glass. Is love enough? Will we ever know? Will we ever know? Let's get low. The future flows, dreaming in colors unknown. My lips are rough to your touch, smoother than paradise gold. Are you my future you are? Are you my future you magic flying. It's just enough to keep the smoke from rising. Your eyes are tangled in the past. Is love enough? Will we ever know? Will we ever know? Let's get low. The future flows. Feeling dimensions unknown. My lips are rough to your touch. Smoother than paradise gold. Are you my future, you are? Are you my future, you are? My paradise gold, yeah. Are you my future, you are? Are you my future, you are? My paradise gold,
Welcome to the Universal Broadcasting Network's Hit Afternoon
Now
Show.
that you found
Bringing you
Now that you found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends.